car's underway. Stamps his authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong.
On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch.
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along. We have another round of the APC season here today to contend with. And this one is going to be in two different stages tonight. We're going to have the Singapore Sprint, and then I'll be off to play some Football Manager for a bit, and then we'll have the race session itself, of course, accompanied by a little bit of qualifying. But the Sprint, we are going to jump pretty much straight into without any real discussions. And, well, sorry, apologies, by the way, if you hear any sniffing or any illness in general. I am. So, I mean, listen, I have to put up with it. You have to put up with it. Here is trackside at the Singapore Grand Prix circuit. I will be joined at some point this evening by Owen Boldero, but he will just try and see if he can get everything to work. As he's dancing gracefully between the two voice channels that we have at the moment. Of course, APC, as it's developed over the course of its years, has now got two voice channels for the broadcasting, one for the waiting room, one for the broadcast booth. And I'm just watching Owen ping pong between them. It's quite funny. But yeah, I mean, the Singapore Grand Prix is one of the best night races. It was the original night race, and I am a big fan of Singapore. I won't lie to you. I really, really like it, and I'm just going to see if all the audio is absolutely fine. It sounds fine in my ear. Yep, 8, perfect. But we will see what is going to happen tonight around this circuit. We've got a number of drivers racing this evening, a decent number of drivers, in fact. And we will see what they're going to be able to contend with towards or throughout even the course of this evening. Two races, two opportunities to really fight for really, really strong positions. We'll wait and see as to what the drivers are capable of. The sprint race may or may not be contended with Ollie Matthews, who will be a new driver, a reserve driver, racing this evening. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to compete with us this evening, but we will see. I also need to blow my nose. We'll get to that when we get to it. 12 drivers, though, and it will turn into 13 once Ollie turns up, so very, very good list. Jack Weaver has a qualifying ban, so he's not going to qualify, but other than that, a full house, as we are going to the formation lap for this sprint race, and we'll see. Before the main race gets underway, the drivers' final preparations. If you'll excuse me, I'm just going to go and blow my nose so I don't continuously sniff into the microphone. And it's a good opportunity on the formation lap. I'm not sure how much better that's going to be, but I hope that's going to be absolutely fine. Apologies for having to disappear already so early on into the stream, but we've got a lot of action to contend with this evening. And yeah, we will wait and see throughout all of it. Hello to those of you joining us on YouTube here today for all of the action that we have ahead of us. Round number 10 of a 14-round season. And, well, it's really, really looking like it's going to be Ferrari's championship to lose. I won't bring up the graphics just because we are heading through towards the final couple of corners, but it's looking as though it's either Chenkovan or Shackleton. As we're just trying to sort Owen out, we're just trying to sort I've just realised I've been yapping for however long that was, and you haven't been hearing me. The reason for that is because I tried to leave the VC so Owen could join, because apparently the problem is that he needs to join first. But that is regardless, because we are going to go to the 5 red lights here in Singapore. The sprint race is ready to get underway, and it is underway. Harry Jennings gets off to a decent launch, and it's going to be Luca Saraceni who tries to challenge the inside line into the first corner. He does so, and that's going to be Connor sliding down the field. Late lunge from Jack Weaver to try and take second place off of the Williams, who slams into the wall. Harry Jennings has damage, but that's not a great start for the pole man as we head down towards turn number 3. It's going to be potentially 3 wide. Kyle, Dan and Brian has lost out. The Sauber becoming the 3rd victim of this first lap. Connor being the first, Harry Jennings being the second, and, well, Carl Stewart-Woodard looks like he might be the 4th. He's alongside Shackleton, as there's a bit of drama going on here, and between Daniel Riley and Stuart Towers. Very, very tight to the apex for Kyle. Actually, that's Connor. Kyle's dropped down, but either way, Stewart-Woodard has held on to 10th place and has not moved forward as Andrea Chenkovan looks to continue his charge that has started with him gaining so many places off the start. 12th place up to 7th, and his teammate all the way up in 9th. Stuart Towers going for the podium on his own teammate, and he'll be hoping Harry is able to hold back Dan Riley, who looks on the outside line, but there's not going to be much holding up he can do if he gets an exit like that. Around the outside again goes, that's going to be Bert Welly through on Harry Jennings. So it's certainly been a horror start to this sprint race, this 10-lap sprint race for the Williams. And now it looks like Dan Riley is going to overtake the other one and move on to the podium positions. The first lap has ended. There's so many moves, and that's another one that's going to be, well, a move round for Bert Welly. He drops down the field. He drops down to 10th place. Drama and carnage early on. That's someone's front wing end plate. Not quite sure who potentially. That was Bert Welly's, as we have a fight for the lead of the race. Jack Weaver squeezes Luca so far off of the road. And, well, in the end, they are going to come out of the exit of turn number 1. I think Luca may have just been handed the position back. But, I mean, Jack is looking so much quicker, these two, extending a gap, that if Stewart continues to fight with Dan Riley, and if he continues to fight with Andrea Chenkovan, it will only increase, and it will mean that they get to break free, up to about 4 seconds free, in fact. And Stewart will be happy to hold on to 3rd place. Brian Moore gets through on Harry, who decides not to dive into the pit lane despite the damage. So we could be seeing himself against Bert Welly at the bottom of the field as Dan Riley now faces off against a foe that he gets, not necessarily regularly, but he certainly gets to fight a McLaren car regularly, and Connor's looking for the move around the outside, switching last second to the inside for the Singapore Sling. Didn't quite do so, so he's going to try and come out onto the exit. Maybe a little bit of a tap on the wall, some sort of noise. And is that an end plate off for Dan Riley as well? It certainly is. So a struggle for a number of these drivers in this early portion of this race. Stuart Towers losing the position in the end to Andrea Chenkovan, looking for the switchback, doesn't quite get the traction off of the exit, and so that means that Andrea Chenkovan takes 3rd place. Stuart, though, with a very, very strong run, but Chenkovan just covering off the line, forcing Stuart Towers to try and lift, try and find an alternative, and he couldn't quite do so. End of lap number 3, and it's still Luca Saraceni in the lead of the race. Crucially, there is a penalty heading Jack Weaver's way. That's going to be 3 seconds for track limits, most likely, when he tried to squeeze Luca Saraceni off at the very start of the last lap. But they are still within DRS range and still going to try and extend that advantage over Chenkovan, who himself is going to extend his advantage over Stuart Towers out of DRS, and he's done so. 1.1 seconds being the gap right now, and Chenkovan has gained a second on Towers and Saraceni on the, Weaver and Saraceni on the previous lap. Weaver, of course, with a qualifying ban in the regular race itself, as Paul Garung, our most recent race winner, is looking for a move on Towers as well, hoping to really solidify the Williams. As poor day around the outside, he looks. Is he going to be able to get through? No. Is the switchback going to be on? Yes, it is. What a beautiful move to pull alongside for Paul Garung. And can he confirm it into the sling? He's going to have to be later on the brakes, but Towers, with nothing to lose, really, really sweeping himself and trying to hold on. But there's only so much he can do. But that does mean that he's going to pick up the DRS heading into the detection zone. It does also mean that he's got the Ferrari on the back of him. And he's going to really, really try and hold him off, which means that he's not going to be able to attack Paul Garung like he would like to. Shackleton with a small little mistake. A little bit of a lock-up, which means he's not able to attack Towers, but down towards the next straight. Looks like he's going to be able to pretty much wall-to-wall DRS straight around this Singapore circuit. You've got the one down the main straight, of course. You've got the one out of the first little complex of corners and towards the end of Sector 1. Then you've got a straight actually without a DRS zone before you head on to one with one once again. And then one more to just finish off the lap. So that rear wing flap stays very much open for a majority of the lap. We're almost at halfway distance here today in the APC sprint race around Singapore, and it looks as though Luca Serafini and Jack Weaver are going to try and hold on to the position, but Andrew Chenkovan is going to be absolutely flying up there, and he's going to try and get within range as Ethan Shackleton tries to challenge his teammate. This would be very beneficial if Shackleton can catch up to his teammate, because he's been lacking in the standings. He's just been dropping and dropping. Chenkovan's one missed round gave everyone some hope, but Shackleton has just not been able to seal that gap down once again. And it's now 3 seconds between Paul Garung and Chenkovan, then another second back to Stuart Towers, then another half a second back to Ethan Shackleton. So he really needs to get past on the Williams on this occasion as Chenkovan breaches that 2-second mark on the back of Jack Weaver. Is he going to be able to get close enough? Not quite yet. And so he remains in behind for yet another corner. Stuart Towers, an absolute beast down the straights, it looked like. And this is going to really, really not benefit Ethan Shackleton in this fight especially. They head down towards the final couple of corners and will be back onto the main straight again. And they stay locked in arms. Yeah, they stay locked in arms as we head over to the halfway point of this race, lap number 5. And Andrew Chenkovan's actually lost a bit of time to Weaver and Serafini. So maybe a mistake coming out from the Ferrari, which means that he's not quite as close to the V-carb or the Kick Sauber as he was on the previous lap time. However, he's wasted no time in catching that back up, has he? So maybe a difference in setups means that he's very, very quick in some aspects and not so quick in others, but his chase through the field has been exemplary so far, from last all the way up to third within the space of only a couple of laps even, and he's going to try and see what he can do in terms of breaching that gap. Brian Moore trying to get ahead of Connor Stewart Woodard, and he's done so. He's up into 9th place. It's a very, very good move that allows the Kick Sauber to just maybe stretch his legs a little and try to catch up to the back of the car ahead, which is Burt Welly, who of course has damage. So it's an opportunity that he's going to certainly try and take. I mean, why wouldn't he? He's trying to pick up as much as he can. He's trying to pick up as many points as he can, so it makes sense for him to try and fight forward. But at the moment, it's not quite the chase that he would have wanted, as that's a 3-second time penalty for Ethan Shackleton. That could be absolutely huge towards the end of this race, and he's actually finally gotten past Stuart Towers, but at what expense for the Ferrari? That is really, really a shame. But he does have a 3-second gap, as that's very close with Stuart Towers trying to go down the inside. But he does have a 3-second gap to Paul Garung ahead. So I think he might just have to solidify P5 and go for it again in the race. He has the pace, just not the ability to overtake, it seems, in the sprint. And that's really, really what's costing him at this point in time. Another 3-second for Jack Weaver as he tries to remain with Luca Serafini. This is looking like the V-Carb's day here today, and I don't want to jinx it too early because I know Andrei Chenkovan is very much closing, but Luca Serafini is looking very quick, and Jack Weaver, 6 seconds worth of penalties. I thought my wheel had fallen off its stand there for a second. It hadn't. It was just my stream deck, which I still haven't set up. But yeah, Serafini might go on to take the victory in this one, you know. He's going to have to hope that Jack Weaver is going to hold up Chenkovan. But I think that's a possibility, especially with Jack Weaver now having damage. But he's got to avoid him into all of the DRS zones. And I think that's going to be the first DRS zone where he picks up... Didn't mean to pause it. Where he picks up DRS. Indeed it is. And so Jack Weaver, is he going to defend here from Andrew Chenkovan? Well, Chenkovan's not close enough. That's a huge amount of damage for Jack Weaver. Surely he's not going to be able to hold on to this for too long. That's more wing damage on the front of that Kick Sauber. And his race has just gone from bad to worse around the final couple of corners. He's going to be ahead. He's really going to slow him up. And that's going to be a 3-second for Luca Serafini. He's not got the bottle, and that's going to be Jack Weaver out of the session. Oh, he just tried to hold on with that front wing, just tried to see what he can do for track position, but in the end he retired from the sprint race And, well, bottled an on-track podium. Chenkovan 2 seconds behind Luca Seracini with 3 laps left. I'd say it was game on if Luca Seracini still had no penalty, but unfortunately he does. And the ever relentless Andrei Chenkovan looks like he's going to strike. I don't think P2, P3 is far off, though, for Luca Seracini, so he's going to be loving the reverse grid format for this sprint race, which we have here today. And I believe it is actually, and I will double check, but I'm fairly confident in saying it's the final sprint race of the season. But of course, you doubt yourself whenever you say something along these lines. Is it going to be the final sprint race of the season? Yes, it is. It was the second and final. The first one we had in Austria. The second one we are having right here, right now. And yeah, we will see towards the end of this race, because it was very, very, very good throughout this campaign. It's been very, very good throughout this campaign. I think the sprints always look very, very good. Of course, last year we didn't have them streamed together, so I'm glad that we had the opportunity to get them streamed this campaign. But yeah, Jack Weaver not very happy with his crash. I'm sure that's a fair statement. I think he was just trying to get out of the way more than anything on Andrei Chenkovan. But there's only so much you can do that where it's safe versus dangerous. I mean, it's a big rule in GT3 racing, or especially multi-class racing. If you are in a GT3, you need to be predictable. You can dive out of the way as much as you like, but as long as you're predictable, you know, that's the most important part. Lap 8 of 10 then, here in this sprint race, and Luca Seracini leads Andrei Chenkovan. But Chenkovan now within DRS range, and he's going to want to take that on-track victory home. Paul Grung 3.8 seconds back off of Andrei Chenkovan. So it's going to get very close for the final spot on this podium, and it's going to get very close for P4 as well. Shackleton is ahead of Stuart Towers, quicker than Stuart Towers, but hoping that Williams does not close that gap in any way, shape or form. He's going to be hoping to extend that gap, and well, we will see towards the end of this race. Not long to go for these drivers. It's a short, sharp and sweet sprint race here around Singapore, and we're going to see what these drivers are going to get the chance to do in the last lap. Is it going to be Chenkovan getting through on Seracini for the on-track race lead? Is it going to be Ethan Shackleton breaking free of that 3-second gap? It looks like it's going to be, but breaking free of that 3-second gap on Stuart Towers. Is it going to be the case that I think Connor's going to gain up to P7 here, which will be very, very good. Can he gain another place if Dan Riley picks up a penalty? Because he's certainly struggling. He's certainly struggling with that damage, but yeah, we'll see. As well, there's 5/10 between Luca Seracini and Andrei Chenkovan, and we're going to see what they're going to be able to do. DRS zones are littered around this circuit, and we've only got a few more to go. We've only got 2 more laps to go, and so we've only got 6 now more DRS zones until the end of this race, or 5.5 if you're being picky. Actually, is it 4? Yeah, I'd argue that's 4. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I'm wrong. I'm being stupid. It's 6. So this is the first of 6, as Dan Riley and Bert Welly look like they're scrapping it out. And actually, it's going to be Connor Stewart trying to get through on Brian on track, because he knows that there's going to be front wing damage on the front of that car on the Mercedes, and he's just trying to see what he can do in terms of gaining in and overtaking on Dan Riley, the only driver in this pack without a penalty. And Connor now splits the 2 with penalties, and he's unlikely to face any threat from Brian behind. But Bert Welly is not going to give up that position in a hurry, I don't think, because while Brian might be happy to hold on to P9 just because of that penalty, he doesn't want to lose any more time and allow Kyle in even more. He also, Bert Welly, will want that position on track, maybe because he thinks he can get that penalty removed, or maybe just so he can have a buffer to Brian and, again, Kyle behind. So if he can hold up Connor and Brian and then extend the gap on the final lap, then he can build up a good opportunity, as that's another 3 second for Brian Moore. So scrap what I was saying about Brian, although it was going to be pretty similar anyway. Lots of front wing damage here today. So I think we're going to get a very, very spicy race. And we're getting a very spicy sprint here today as Chenkovan around the outside, sweeping to the inside of the next braking zone and then running wide, allowing Luca Seracini back in. So Andrea Chenkovan, maybe just a mistake, a crack in the armour. Didn't want to say the other word. A crack in the armour of the Ferrari. As well, it's been a pretty flawless race. He's driven so incredibly well, caught drivers at the best times, put drivers under pressure at the best times. He's now got Luca Seracini ahead of him with just 2 DRS zones to go. And then those two have a huge gap back to Paul Garung. They've just been the quickest here today. And that promises for Luca Seracini's race win. And it promises for Luca Seracini's pace in general. Don't forget, if he didn't have that 3 second, this will be the fight for the victory. Which shows that even though, you know, Chenkovan might have been out of position, Luca Seracini still did well to fight up there with race pace. Because you've still got 10 laps of racing to go. And, well, he looks like he's going to take the on-track victory. He's going to be absolutely ecstatic with this one. As around the final corner, the V-Cub comes. And he's not quite going to be the next victor in APC, but he's certainly going to feel like it. Andrei Chenkovan takes the sprint race victory. Paul Garung takes 3rd. And Shackleton is going to come home in 4th after Stuart Towers was not able to hold that 3-second gap. Dan Riley will hold on to 6th place in the end with Burt Welly in behind in the with 3 seconds worth of penalties, and then it was Burt Welly in 7th. He'll drop down behind Connor, Stuart Woodard, and potentially Kyle as well. Yes, he will. Brian Moore with that bit of damage with those 6 seconds of penalties. No damage, in fact, but 6 seconds of penalties drops to the back of the pack. And Harry Jennings is going to be the only driver outside of the top 10, with Jack Weaver the only DNF. But I will see if drivers join us for interviews. I'm sure they will. Just to debrief their sprint race. And then get prepared for the main race itself, which is just over half an hour's time. So do not go far, folks. Because we'll have the opportunity to go again in the race very, very soon. And this is the beauty of a sprint race and a sprint weekend in particular, you know. It's just so, especially the format that we've got, it's so well set up because we don't have to wait a day. We have to wait half an hour. And, well, I'll run you through those results, send you off of the stream, and I'll see you again in half an hour. So it's going to be Andrei Chenkovan taking the victory ahead of Luca Seracini. 3rd place for Paul Garung, and 4th for Ethan Shackleton. It's Stuart Towers, Dan Riley, Connor Stuart Woodard, and Kyle Stuart Woodard rounding out the in-game points with Burt Welly, Brian Moore, and Harry Jennings rounding out the finishers, with the only retirement being Jack Weaver. But until the race is ready to get underway, I'll see you in roughly half an hour's time. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's not been long, but I mean, as I said towards the end of the last part of the stream, it's very good to be back, and wow, it's very good to be joined by Owen Boldero as well for this second part of the evening, for the second bit of action that we have on our hands, and it's a slightly more tame affair, but a slightly more constructive one as well. The sprint race is over. The main race is just about to get underway, or qualifying for the main race at first. We should have 13 drivers, and yeah. Owen, I mean, you didn't join me through the sprint race, but you did watch. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, hello, Joseph. Thankfully, I've managed to get the issue sorted. Good old university Wi-Fi deciding to have a mental breakdown. But it was a very, very interesting sprint race. You know, I was most surprised by the strong pace of Luca Seracini. I was on board with his fight with Andrea Chenkovan. He really had the measure of Andrea, I think it's fair to put it. And his pace was genuine. It wasn't just because he started at the front. They were pulling away from Paul Garung and the others behind. So I'd say that's probably the biggest surprise. But a new surprise is going to be we have a new driver with us for this race, and that is Ollie Matthews. He's a reserve, first time racing in APC, a driver I am very familiar with. I have commentated on him numerous times in other leagues. So he will bring some pace and some experience to the grid. So it's going to be a very, very interesting race.
Certainly should be very good, of course. My and this isn't to brag, this is just to say my forays have been slightly in a different world, so I haven't quite been able to see a number of these drivers outside, but I know that you're very, very much involved in. It feels like they're all very different worlds at the moment, where you've got this sort of group that stays together in whatever league they do. You've got you've got some drivers who don't really cross over worlds much, if that makes sense. I don't worlds is
Yeah, I get what you mean.
not
Yeah.
really the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
But yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to me to see a new driver, and I'm sure it's always interesting for everybody to see a new driver as well. I mean, it was certainly a very good sprint race, and I mean, we get the opportunity to see a brand new driver in action with the rest of these 12 drivers. He was actually the first man in chat. He saw the notification to go live, which is, by the way, just a reminder, turn on your post notifications just so you know exactly when we go live. He saw the post notification and went, "Oh, I didn't realise it was now." And it wasn't, because he was thinking of the main race. It was unfortunate that he wasn't able to join us for the sprint. But yeah, I mean, it was, it wasn't the opportunity he had to impress, but now is the opportunity he has to impress. And well, I think based on what you've said, I think he's going to go pretty well. But yeah, we'll wait and see what he's going to be capable of. It's going to be a different format, the sprint race to the main race. It's very, very different, isn't it? Where it's just very much, the sprint race is kind of a bit carnage. We saw that, but main race, there's a lot more strategy that can play into it. Not only with the tyres, but also with the way you drive.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at Singapore, if you're a controller player, tires just obliterate themselves. A one stop is possible, but it is very, very difficult. I in my previous league race here, which was nearly 2.5 months ago now, I managed to do the one stop, but after 13 laps, my mediums were on 80%, sorry, and then hards at the end were on 82 or something, I believe. So it's a very, very difficult one stop. It is possible, but you need a little bit of luck to not get a puncture. So realistically, if you can do the one stop, you're kind of forced to do it, because Singapore is not a circuit that is particularly easy to overtake at without taking an element of risk. So I think we're going to see a lot of one stops from those that can 100% do it. I think even those that aren't 100% sure if they can, they've got to go for it, because although it's a short pit lane, as I said, it's so difficult to overtake here.
Certainly is. That's what we saw in the sprint race, with all the drivers struggling to get the opportunity to overtake. They tried and they failed on multiple occasions to try and pass the other cars in and around them. And whilst a lot of them did actually make their way through eventually, it was to the detriment of their front wings, or to the other drivers' front wings, or Jack Weaver's case, where he was trying to defend against a hard charging Andrea Chenkovan. It was just to the detriment of his entire race, which he saw come to an end very, very late on in the day, while he was fighting for second place. We're just about to get into the lobby, and then we'll get pictures from trackside. And I believe, is that actually all of the drivers in the session? And well, that bodes very well. They've been quick to join the lobby. Hopefully they'll be quick out on circuit.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes, as you say, in qualifying sessions, you see people hang about a little bit, not want to go out straight away. And I think a street circuit like Singapore, that is also a pretty high possibility. Track evolution is something which is very, very strong in this F1 25 game, and yet Singapore is going to be even stronger. So some people might not go out straight away. Some might decide, I'm going to save a set of softs just in case we get a late safety car, and only do the 2 runs maybe, if they think they're good enough to not invalidate their 2.
Well, we're going to have a driver straight out on circuit, so we're going to cut down to trackside. Some of you watching that stream might have seen that stinger somewhere else this week. But yeah, we're going to see, I believe that may well be. Is that going to be Dan Riley, the first driver, out of second? I couldn't believe it when I made that mistake, because it was such a hasty setup. I wasn't supposed to be the original streamer, and then I saw that when I switched over, and I went, oh god, it's going to be one of those evenings. But I mean, it was a fun evening, and it got some promotion where we got no joins off the back of it, but it was funny. So that's all that matters, really, isn't it? And we got 17 minutes left in a long qualifying session, and we've got a number of drivers coming out straight away. So just wanting to get some laps under their belt.
Yeah, and that is, as I said, one of 2 ways you can go at Singapore. You can either choose to wait for track evolution to come into effect, or you can go out straight away. You know, Singapore is a circuit that is very much about learning the conditions, I think is the best way to put it, because it can change from session to session. You know, it could feel completely different to what it did less than 30 minutes ago in the sprint race. So it's basically like relearning a track when you drive at Singapore sometimes.
It certainly is, and well, some of these drivers struggled with learning the circuit right off the bat around Singapore the first time in the sprint race, where a lot of them were saying it was very, very slippery, and well, that's interesting but unsurprising for Singapore. The night conditions can make for a slippery, cold track surface.
Yeah, definitely, and that can affect the tyres quite significantly, especially if you're on hard tyres in the race, which, of course, if they're doing a one-stop, they're going to have to 100% use, and that can affect sort of warm-up and things like that. And when the hards, of course, are too cold, you just don't get the grip from them that you ordinarily would, so it can be a bit of an issue, tyres here, and tyre temperature on this game, which is weird to say because in previous games, Singapore, the tyres just used to fry themselves. But in this game, the tyres run extremely cold.
They certainly do, and well, it might be down to the tyres changing heading into this year's game. Of course, there's been plenty of changes. We've spoken about a number of them on these broadcasts, but there has been plenty of changes for the better or for worse on F1 25, and that is certainly one of them where it's harder to warm up the tyres, but it makes it easier to have cold tyres at a circuit like this, where you'd be expecting warm tyres. All the things that you have to learn, coming into racing on F1 25, but that just comes down to racing IQ, and yeah, we'll see. As the drivers are on their first runs, Dan Riley will be the first one, if he completes this lap, to set one.
Yeah, it's a 104.563 in the middle sector for Dan Riley. Pretty decent lap time here. Of course, his sprint race did not go completely to plan. He earned 3 points, but of course got that wing damage early in the session, which really derailed his chances of progressing further up the field. I think it's fair to say, as now round the final corner will come this long left-hander. Keep it completely flat if you can. Up to line. There's your benchmark. It's a 129.674.
129 watts for? Ollie Matthews going even quicker, 0.015 ahead. Already got one joke in, and it's not even been, 3 minutes into the qualifying session, something like that. It's just about ticked over to 3 minutes in as the rest of the laps tick in. Lucas Aracini finds himself in third place, now demoted to fourth. I'd be expecting him to go behind Karstjit Wood and Chenkovan as well. His pace in the sprint was so much better, and he said this to me himself, as Chenkovan goes fastest by over a second. Unsurprising at this point. But it's very, very interesting to see that, well, he's just taken everything into his stride in this race. He really seems to like Singapore, and, well, he's hoping, but not expecting that pace to remain in the main race.
Yeah, as I said earlier in the broadcast, his pace was genuine. It was a big surprise considering the way his season has gone. He's really struggled at previous tracks, but at this one it feels like he's got some really genuine pace. And I mean, to be fair, in the practice session as well, I was involved in the practice session. I was running it in Kyle's stead. His pace there was also really, really solid. So some genuine improvement from Luca. And now that I've said that, he's going to go and crash out of the race or something, because that's how commentators' curse works. But he's definitely got pace this week.
Certainly does. There's a few drivers who very much have pace, and I think this is going to be a very, very good race indeed. Of course, we're coming towards the end of the season now, so every single strong race is a bonus, because it's just every single bit of, every single bit of APC action teases us towards next season, and I cannot wait for that one to get underway already. We've still got a number of the skirmishes to go in this season, and I mean, the title fight, whilst it looks pretty much decided, but that is not quite yet the case. Ethan Shackleton, who appears to be on the whole slower than Andrea Chenkovan at most circuits, but well, he's still mathematically in it.
Yeah, he is mathematically in it, but he's pretty far away. I think it's fair to say it's going to be a bit of a struggle for anyone to win it at this point in the season.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's unsurprising that we still have drivers in contention. But, I mean, with that missed round that came in from Andrea Chenkovan, as the two Ferraris are now on the front row, with that missed round that came in from Andrea Chenkovan, it closed things up. And we'll get the opportunity to have a look at the drivers' standings right now. And, well, it's Andrea Chenkovan on top, of course, of the standings with 173 points. He leads ahead of Ethan Shackleton in second place, who is 33 points behind. Then Paul Garung, an even bigger gap, back to third place. And Dan Riley, 20-odd points behind him. Stephen Snell, of course, fell out of love with league racing, but he fell out of love after picking up 78 points here. And Bert Welly, 5 points behind him. He will hope to overtake him here today. Stuart Sowers and Carl Stewart Woodard will have an outside shot of getting past as well. And it's going to be Connor in 9th spot. And rounding out the top 10 will be Jack Weaver, who unfortunately was not able to pick up a strong points haul out of the sprint race. Benjamin D finds himself in 11th. Brian Moore and Lucas Erosini hoping to overtake him today. And, well, Harry Jennings rounding out the 14 drivers that we have in the APC League. That have been registered, and of course we'll get a 15th this evening with Ollie Matthews. Having a look at the team's standings, and it's of course Ferrari at the top. Wouldn't be surprised if they seal it soon. Second place for Mercedes and third for Racing Bulls, just 1 point ahead of just Paul Garung for Aston Martin. Then it's going to be McLaren, Williams and Kick Sauber, who are level on points before Red Bull, Alpine, Haas. Fascinating battles developing, one of which being that fight between Williams and Sauber. Sauber levelling in the sprint race here. And, well, it's going to be an interesting fight pretty much all the way up and down the field.
Yeah, the Constructors is really beginning to heat up now. If you look anywhere except the top of the standings, Aston Martin and Racing Bulls and McLaren, as you say, all separated by literally a point with two of them tying. So I think it's going to be a very, very good fight coming into the business end of the season. Even if we're not really going to have a huge drivers' title fight, we're definitely going to have a big fight in the Constructors for second, third, fourth and fifth, maybe even. All it takes is RB and Aston Martin and McLaren to gain a few points on Mercedes, and they're very much back in it for second place. So it's all to play for behind Ferrari.
Yeah, it's very much all to play for. And, well, of course, the two Ferraris have a fight of their own ready to be contested. And Paul Garung, he's had a late season surge. He's very much likely to be, I mean, very much affecting the fight between Andrea Chenkovan and Ethan Shackleton. He's really picked up the pace at a victory that he got last time out. Really, it could set the tone for the rest of his season.
Yeah, Paul Garung definitely has had huge improvement, as you say, picked up the win last time out. He's just improved slowly but surely, of course, after DNFing the first two rounds of the season. And as you see, they're currently in second place. Not really close to Andrea Chenkovan at the moment, but not really being closed in by Ethan Shackleton. So very, very good improvement from him so far this season as Dan Riley goes into third place, goes a 10th quicker than his previous best.
He certainly does, and Ollie Matthews is going to come across the line to finish his lap. It looked good in the first couple of sectors, and we'll see where he ends up in the third one. As well, the number 13, we're watching him for the first time this season, and he's going to come up to the line. What lap time does he set? He's up to third. I think we've got a fascinating battle for the lead where, I mean, it's different now because we're not in reverse here like we were in the sprint, but we're very much ready for a fight and ready for a fight on pace. They've not got drivers to get out of the way before they get to fight those who are on pace. It appears that we've lost Owen here as we've got 7 minutes left in this qualifying session, and Andrea Chenkovan still leads. Kyle has not set a lap time. That will not be changing this lap as he's invalidated, and he's actually retired on track from the session. I wonder what's going on with that one. I would quite like to find out from Kyle what happened with that one. I'm sure we'll get the chance to at some point as, well, we actually got confirmation from Kyle about a different thing 3 minutes ago, saying there was rain in 5, so Kyle has decided if there is rain out on that circuit, that that is him calling it quits, and I think he wouldn't even be able to make it round for another lap So I think that's just him calling time as Andrei Chenkovan up to the line. And he sets a 1:28.445 in what is expected to be the last good lap. Solly Matthews has not got the opportunity to set another one, nor has Dan Riley. And that looks like it's going to be the battle for pole position over. Connor is improving by a half a second, and so he could be on for a very strong lap. His qualifying pace has been ridiculous over the last few weeks, and he's looking to do that just once again. And, well, he heads through the second sector now with a very, very strong opportunity.
Yeah, just a slight connection issue. Good old uni Wi-Fi, but I'm back now. Yeah, as you say, Connor's quality pace has really improved recently. I think he likes this game a little bit more, from what I can tell, than he did F1 24. He really struggled in parts on F1 24, but on 25, he's found a little bit of overspeed on people he used to battle. So a decent improvement from him. And as you say, his quality pace has been really, really good, as the rain is actually now falling. So that probably will be the end of qualifying here.
Including, unfortunately, for Connor's lap, which looked very, very good. He's timed it wrong. And yeah, that's going to be that for this session, as Connor is going very much slower than the car that was in front of him, which I believe was going to be, I believe that was actually Luca Seracini in front of him, who was retired on track. But there we go, there's our qualifying, and it's Andrew Chenkovan on pole position, and it's going to be Paul Garung lining up alongside him, with Ollie Matthews third and Dan Riley fourth. Then Ethan Shackleton and Connor Stewart-Wood. Didn't think I'd ever say that, but they populate the third row of the grid. Then it's going to be Stuart Towers and Luca Seracini, who both looked in very good contention for a podium until they didn't. And, of course, Luca Seracini ended up with the podium. And I'm talking about podium in terms of a win for Luca Seracini. Then Harry Jennings, Brian Moore, Jack Weaver and Carl Stewart-Wood to round out the field. So still a little bit shaken up as we see two drivers who would be expecting more towards the mid-pack right at the back in Jack Weaver and Carl Stewart-Wood.
Yeah, I think after the sprint, Jack Weaver was a little bit dejected. I think he's just very, very demotivated after the sprint. He said it in the chat that he's just really, really struggling to race at the moment. And that seems to be a bit of a knock-on effect at the moment. It seems like a lot of people are really struggling to league race in this game. Unless you're like a hardcore league racer, it's a lot of people are leaving. And it's really, really sad to see. As DRS now disabled, and that does confirm that nobody will be going faster whatsoever. If you manage to go faster than you're on the previous best in these conditions, then you deserve a gold medal, because that would be absolutely ridiculous. And now everybody starting to retire because, well, there's no point really in staying in the session. You may as well just retire a few minutes early and then get the race started a couple of minutes earlier as well.
I was going to say, and I think in terms of, I mean, sprint fans will be very happy with that, because it means that we can throw over to the race action quicker. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw over to the man that informed us of that fate of the rain coming, and also the man who informed us about the fact of doing that, and basically that was the entire reason, I'd imagine, that he retired. Kyle, am I right in saying that rain coming out is what cost you your lap, or was it just bottles?
No, it hadn't started yet. I just had two invalidated laps. The first one was on the very last corner, which infuriated me. I was not happy about that. The second one was me on my own. It wasn't the rain at all, but because I'd invalidated two and I knew the rain was coming, there was no point me trying to go again. I was never getting it in, so I just retired there and just decided to fester in my own self-pity.
That's fair enough. I mean, looking towards the race session, what are the conditions looking like? Is it going to remain wet? Is it going to start drying up? What's the verdict?
Oh, I'll be honest, it said only 70% chance of raining now, and then suddenly it was happening in 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It said 13% for the race, which normally you'd expect it not to rain, but you know, who knows? Our setting we use is approximate weather, so it's not always correct. And we've had rain here at Singapore back in season 6, if I remember correctly, so it's happened. So we will see. But once I get into the session, I will have a quick look at the map and see what it says.
Yeah, we'll be very excited to see, especially if it is a rainy session. I mean, I believe we're getting towards monsoon season in Singapore at least, so maybe it's going to be full wet conditions. But yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to speak to you before the race rather than after, when usually you're dejected and kind of like, about the race. So, I mean, it was good to hear you with high hopes, and we'll see how your race goes, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, guys. I'll speak to you afterwards.
Certainly will indeed. And that was Carl Stuart Woodard, the man who will be starting last. And, well, he and Jack Weaver have got a lot of work to do, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, there was rain in season 6. I'd just like to throw it out there. Guess who got pole position in that race in season 6? We won't talk about the race because I didn't even contest the race because I disconnected at 2 minutes before the end of qualifying. But I did take pole position in that race, and the race was unbelievably wet. It got wet. If I remember correctly, it was about lap 16 because I was watching it after disconnecting. It's about lap 16. It literally just started chucking it down, which is something that happens quite a lot at Singapore. It can change so quickly. It's such a volatile place when it comes to weather. We've seen it in real life as well. I believe it was 2022 where it chucked it down in Q1 and Q2 and then dried up for Q3. It was really, really strange. So volatile conditions can make or break your race here.
Certainly can. It'll be very, very interesting to see what the drivers are going to be able to do as we can throw you track side in a bad American accent. And, well, we will be getting a view of the pit lane and getting a view of Carl Stuart Woodard and Connor's little pit box as they get ready to go. Of course, we'll get a formation lap and then we'll be getting underway. But early predictions?
Considering how hard it is to overtake, I'm just going to go boring and I'm going to go Andrea Chenkovan, because I think as long as he gets away on pole easily enough, he can extend that advantage. And it's not as if it's a place where DRS is very, very powerful or even works very effectively. So I think it will be Andrea Chenkovan that takes the win today. I think pole position at Singapore is such a huge advantage to have, because if you can lead out of turn 1, you can then control your own race, because those behind you will be scrambling to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, they certainly will. But I think that even if it is going to be boring out the front, we're going to get absolute carnage in behind. And, well, hopefully, at least that's what we're going to be getting with the likes of Kyle and Jack. Do we reckon they're going to be able to fight their way up to the mid-pack, or do you reckon they're going to be towards the lower echelons of the points?
I mean, I don't see them getting towards the top, but I think they could definitely get to the mid-pack. I can see them working their way up to sort of 6th place, 7th place, somewhere around that. But I think the top 5 will very quickly disappear out of view in this race.
Yeah, very, very quickly. And, well, that just appears to be the par for the course for the drivers up at the very top of the field. And it has been for pretty much the whole season, where we just have that extra. It feels like not like multi-class racing really, but we have those battles that appear to be pretty similar every race. And I mean, you can pretty much specify about 5 drivers, if you include Ollie Matthews now, who could be up the very top day in, day out. But I mean, the formation lap's underway. We'll get an indication of the pace that they're going to want to run, at least, as we'll get Andrew Chenkovan, most likely, who's going to try and burst off of the line, get to green flag running as quickly as he can, and then get done and get home nice in time for tea. But yeah, I mean, he's going to fly off for the rest of the field as per usual, but this time he is actually going to be relatively met by Paul Garang, who is seemingly as keen as him to get this one underway.
Yeah, they're doing a pretty quick formation lap, whereas others behind are doing slower ones. I mean, Andrea Chenkovan is now coming towards turn 4, whereas Kyle has only just come out of turn 3 onto the DRS straight. So pretty big distance if you look at it, but even between 2nd and 3rd, there's a gap probably of about, 2.5 seconds. So if the top 2 don't slow down, they'll be sat on the grid for quite a long time, which could cool their tyres a hell of a lot come the start.
Certainly could, and well, we saw that a couple of weeks ago with, or actually last week, in fact, with Carl Stuart Woodard getting disqualified from the formation lap pretty much straight off. Nobody's had that same fate so far, at least this week, and we hope that they continue to Well, remain out of the sides of each other. The possible race strategies, medium hard or medium hard. That suggests that everyone's gone for mediums, which is not true, because the two McLarens have gone for a hard set of tyres at the start.
Very, very interesting. That does make me wonder if there is rain on the way, because hards here will do about 20 laps if you're kind to them. Which, I mean, if there's rain on the way, they'll probably be saving the tyres anyway. We haven't had anything from Kyle about whether it is going to rain this race, but of course he said there was a chance during the interview post-qualifying, so that does make me wonder if they have decided to take the gamble and wait for the rain to come out, and then the others have thought, well, it's not coming early enough. Maybe stopping once might be advantageous before the rain comes. So, two very different strategy games here. So, going to be very, very interesting as we now line up on the grid.
We certainly do. The drivers are getting ready. And, well, it would be Andrew Chenkofan just desperately trying to get that parking right in first. Paul Garung, similar situation, in second, just creeping up to the line. And we'll just get everybody else lined up, stacked, and ready in position. Lucas Aracini overshot his line, so he'll start further back. And Brian Moore just about overshooting that yellow line. And he will be pushed further back as well. But we have a look at the 5 red lights up ahead of the drivers, and all 5 lights are on. All of the drivers are ready, and the action is underway here in Singapore. Chenkofan and Paul Garung will be locked in arms into the first corner, and it's going to be Chenkofan to sweep his way through and take that lead, as that's going to be carnage in behind, and that's going to cost Carl Stewart Woodard, who sent it to the inside of the first corner. I think he may well have been the instigator heading through towards the next few corners at the end of the first sector. It's still drama out on the circuit, but as everyone settles down, knowing that it's a 31-lap race, it's going to be Chenkofan who leads ahead of Garung.
Something to talk about. Jack Weaver, in a matter of 2 corners, gained 4 positions. He's already up to 7th place from 11th. That is a barnstormer of a start. As down the inside he goes, on 2 cars, a little bit of contact with a Ferrari V from Shackleton. Shackleton goes into the wall. The stewards might have something to say about that post-race, as Jack Weaver hits the wall on the right himself. So a chaotic start for Jack Weaver, but one that has seen him gain 6 positions in a sector of racing.
Certainly has a huge start from Jack Weaver, and the hope that he's going to continue from now on is very, very high, of course. He is now outside of the DRS range, and that doesn't matter just yet, but that will matter in just a couple of corners' time. 2 seconds off of the back of Ollie Matthews at the moment, and just trying to close his way back in as we head towards the end of this first lap. Andrew Chenkofan has managed to eke out the gap to Paul Garung behind to about 8/10 of a second. Then it's the same between Garung and Riley, then 4/10 between Riley and Matthews. So it's a start where it feels as though everybody's sort of separating out. Maybe the dirty air is affecting everybody a little bit more here at the end of lap 1 here in Singapore. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this race develops. Fastest lap of the race goes, of course, to Chenkofan, and that won't really change until the next lap, where we get to see the starts for everybody else. Connor is almost out of the DRS on Jack Weaver, as those mediums versus those hards really start to come into effect.
Yeah, a very, very interesting start. I mean, as you mentioned, Dirty Air is very, very strong round here. I think if I go on board with Paul Garung, I can see it into this corner. He's just not, he's very twitchy on the wheel because of Dirty Air. It's so strong. And I know they're trying to go for realism, but it really does kill the racing, especially around a circuit that was already hard to race on. So it's something they're probably going to tone down next game, because there's been a lot of complaints, not only from the casual league racing community, but also from esports drivers in your world, Joseph. There's been a lot of conversations about this game and whether Dirty Air is too strong and things like that.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, it's a very much a debate constantly, and a lot of drivers have seen their way out of this game and not interested anymore. As well, the first burst of DRS, the first lap with DRS, sees one overtaken. It's Lucas Aracini, who's outbraked himself. Connor tried to go for the send back, and that sees him inside inside the wall now. He tried to go on the inside of Lucas Aracini. Now this allows Stuart Towers to go through, and that was a little bit dramatic as Luca Serafini goes for the switchback. This is the benefit of no assists. It means you can break later, turn in earlier if you get it right. And it allows both of them to come out of the final corner, locked in battle, locked in arms, and still alongside. I think Luca is going to back out into the first corner. Yes, he is, as Stuart breaks later, gets through. This allows Carl Stewart to get through as well, as Brian and Ethan have just been watching on. And it's going to see Carl Stewart up to 9th place ahead of Brian Moore. And that's very good for him, but not so good for his teammate.
Yeah, definitely. I think Connor got a little lucky, though. It doesn't look like he has any damage, so he's just sat behind Brian now, needs to recuperate and then go for it again in a few laps' time. But something else to note, whilst it's been a good race for some, it's not been a good race for Ethan Shackleton and his championship hopes, if there were any left, of course. 30 is roughly 40 points back in this championship now, and I mean, well, Andrea Chenkovan is first and Ethan Shackleton is 8th, so that's what, a 22 point gain, 21 point gain for Andrea Chenkovan. So if things end like this, which they very well could with Ethan Shackleton having that damage, I think that all but surely puts the stamp on Andrea Chenkovan, winning a 3rd title in a row.
Yeah, what an unbelievable dominance he's had so far. That's a 3-second time penalty for Luca Serafini. He's not the only one for that, as, well, Harry Jennings has one and Stewart has 10 seconds. So not a great start from him. He got that in the first few skirmishes for cutting a corner and gaining a place. Likely that he'd be able to at least challenge to get that removed. But I don't know whether he'd care about that one too much. And he's actually going to have to serve it in the pit lane anyway. He's going to be attacked into the first corner by Serafini. Manages to hold on to the position by going off of the circuit. But is that an illegal overtake? Is he going to let him back through? It looks like he indeed is. But he's going to try and defend from Ethan Shackleton. He does not need this fighting, does the Ferrari, for his championship fight. And, well, they're going to continue on with the DRS. Who's going to come out on top? I think Shackleton has the measure of Towers. But Towers is going to go for Serafini as well. They're going to be 3 wide into the next braking zone. But it's all down to who's later on the brakes. It's going to be Towers. On the exit, Serafini gets the switchback. And then again, it's Towers late on the brakes. And that's a slide from Shackleton. And that is going to be that in terms of him battling here. Kyle gains another place.
Yeah, I think Ethan Shackleton just got on the throttle a little bit too hard there. Kyle going up to 8th, capitalising on that snap of oversteer from Ethan. I think Ethan was just a little bit keen on the throttle to get past the guys ahead. I believe it was Luca. He was trying to switch back. He was trying to set it up for the next corner so he could overtake on turn 6, I believe it is, but just wasn't quite able to do it, unfortunately, as Ollie Matthews and Dan Riley going side by side into the final braking zone of the lap, if you classify that as the last braking zone. I mean, it's more of a downshift for the final corner, so I suppose I would classify it as the last braking zone of the lap. But yeah, Dan Riley comes out on top there, so Ollie Matthews losing a place from his starting position, just has to recuperate now as Jack Weaver retires from the session mid-race.
That's not good from Jack Weaver, retiring from the sprint and then retiring from the race session itself. This time, retiring from the race session itself, not by crashing. He's into the pit lane. So is Shackleton. Is Shackleton repairing damage? We'll see after, well, Ollie Matthews goes down the inside of Dan Riley. Can he make his way through, or is he going to have to be forced to stay behind? We won't actually see about Shackleton, because we'll watch on with this battle, and we'll briefly switch to the battle between Stuart Towers and Luca Serafini, as there you go, Owen says he was, and I'm inclined to believe him as well. So Towers holds on against Serafini, Dan Riley holds on against Matthews, and Shackleton pits for damage.
Yeah, a race of two halves here. Like I said sort of the top 4, top 5 would break away, and we very much have a top 4 in this race. 9 seconds splitting 4th and 5th place in this race already, and then 5 seconds splitting 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th. So a very, very split race with about 4 different battles going on at the moment. As now, moving down the field, Kyle is just sat right behind Luca Serafini at the moment. Luca's pace has not been quite as extravagant as it was earlier in the sprint. It's still still a decent performance from him so far. As I say that, he goes off track. That might open an opportunity up for Kyle behind to attack into this turn 1. I don't think it's a place you particularly want to go for. It's a very, very awkward turn 1. Just by its nature, due to how the curbs are, you very much, if you're going to go for an overtake at Singapore, want to set it up into this DRS zone right here, as Ollie Matthews got quite close there, but wasn't quite able to make the move stick. As now side by side between Stuart Towers and Lucas Serafini. Stuart Towers coming out on top. Just about can Kyle get himself involved here. He's going to sit behind for now. Kyle is not the kind of driver to go for anything reckless if he can help it. I mean, occasionally these things happen, but as well, in the time that I've known him, I can't actually think of anything that he's done that was incredibly stupid. So that's just how it is. As I say that, Lucas Saraceni hits the wall big time. Through goes Kyle, but Lucas going to switch it back. I don't think you guys are on board with it, so I'm just going to tell you what is happening. Lucas switches it back. Kyle now side by side to the end of Sector 2. Kyle is just about going to come out on top.
Yeah, Kyle just about coming out on top ahead of Lucas Serafini. Apologies if we missed any battles while I was gone. I'm very ill at the moment, so trying to fight through it. Of course, for APC, Kyle, and that's going to be Luke as well on Stuart Towers, and they're going to be up into 5th place as 5th and 6th respectively, as that's going to be Kyle, or not Kyle, it's going to be Stuart into the pit lane, and he's going to try and get rid of those softs, what is it, 2015, and he's going to try and get rid of those medium compounded tyres and make a switch. And is it going to be for damage as well that he makes this pit stop? We will wait and see as he comes down now towards his pit crew, and it appears to be, well, he's going to serve that penalty. But does he have that damage as well? We'll wait and see. It doesn't look like he's got any of his pit crew holding up any front wings to replace. So no, it's quite a legitimate pit stop. And this might just be the window that the drivers are going to start to think of coming into the pits and all that. So the front wing change that didn't happen, the 10-second time penalty, he's come out behind Ethan Shackleton. And well, Ethan will be loving that sight, but he'll be pushing on, hoping for a little bit more from the other drivers when they come in for their pit stops.
I think it's very early for a pit stop. If that rain doesn't come, you've just 100% committed yourself to a 2-stop. I don't see hards doing 24 laps. If mediums are only doing 7 for these guys, I don't see hards doing 24. So I think if you're coming in now, you're 100% doing that 2-stop strategy. So if you can extend to about lap 13, 14, you very much want to be doing that. Of course, that is in a theoretical world where the race is going to stay completely dry. Of course, we have had word that it could rain in this race, so I'm not 100% sure, as Luca and Kyle going side by side for a brief moment there. Luca comes out on top just about. Kyle may look to fight back into turn 1 as he actually has a poor exit and goes off track slightly.
He does, and that means that he's not going to be able to attack, but with the DRS it's going to keep him close, and he's going to outbrake himself into the first corner. And I wouldn't imagine that what he was saying on his stream would be very polite as he picks up a 3-second time penalty out on the exit of turn number 2. And well, he's going to try and attack all over again with the DRS down this next area, and then there's a little bit of break for DRS before he goes all over again down into the next part of the circuit. But for now, he is just going to remain in behind the V car for the time being. Lucas Aracini is really putting on a challenge today for these top 5 spots.
Yeah, looking really, really strong at the moment. Of course, this is a battle for position at the moment, as I believe these two both have 3 seconds of penalties. I'm just going to check that. Yes, they both have 3 seconds total, so they are both fighting for position. So very, very strong pace from not only Luca, but I think we need to give Kyle a little bit of credit as well. Of course, he is on those hard tyres. He started on them. This is the window where hards will begin to creep in as the better tyre and come to the fore. But the thing is, Kyle has lost 12.5 seconds nearly to Dan Riley ahead of Luca. So it's probably too big of a gap for Kyle to get anything more than P5 here. There we go, he's going to get it done before we even hit the braking zone, tucks in and takes 5th place. And surely, with those better tyres, will begin to extend it as his teammate actually capitalises as well and goes up to 6th place. So, Kyle and Connor running together in 5th and 6th. So a good race for McLaren at the moment.
Yeah, Luca with no front wing, so he's made a mistake somewhere on the circuit, which has seen him lose his entire front wing, which is not great for the V-Carb, and now the two McLarens can push on completely free. What do I?
I heard the clip. I heard the clip of the wall, but I didn't see it because I was on board with Kyle. I thought he'd just slightly tapped it, but I didn't know he'd lost his entire front wing.
It looked like his entire front wing. It may well have been a visual thing. You know what this game's like, but it certainly did. And, well, I tried to have a look to see when they were taking it off, but obviously when they're taking it off, it spawns a whole new nose cone and looks completely brand new. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that the game just needs to improve upon. I think one of the little details that will make it so much better. Kyle and Connor running together once again, as they've done so many times this season. As I think Connor generally has the qualifying pace, but Kyle always seems to be quicker in the races. It might be down to his incredibly superior tyre management, which is, of course, a fabled story throughout this season. But, I mean, he always seems to be better in the races, and Connor just seems to be very good at qualifying very high up, as we've got a very good fight on here for the last place on the grid, and we've actually got one driver for the fight in the lead into the pit lane in Andrea Chenkovan.
Yeah, coming in probably for a set of hard tyres, yeah, so 22 laps even. Oh, that's going to be difficult. It's going to be very difficult for Andrea Chenkovan to do. I think he probably can, but they're not going to feel pleasant. They're going to be in the 80s, 85s most likely, with how high tyre wear is, and with Andrea Chenkovan being on controller, that is going to be a contributing factor as well, as Kyle will come out ahead just in front of Andrea Chenkovan. Sorry, Andrea Chenkovan comes out just behind Kyle, I should say. But yeah, we'll see how quickly can he dispatch of Kyle, because that will be pretty crucial for his race, as Kyle's actually just going to let him by. So no battling needed there.
Yeah, Chenkovan's not going to have his job made too hard by Kyle, who's going to try and remain in the DRS, but he's not going to be able to do so for very much longer. In fact, I think he's going to get literally one DRS straight, if that's the fight. For that last place is very fierce and very good racing. And further up, we've got a little scrap between Harry Jennings and Brian Moore as well. So that's a very good one to see those who don't get much on track action. So whenever they get some good stuff, they get some very good stuff. But Lucas Seracini and Stuart Towers, an interesting partnership. But I like seeing these two fight, because at the moment so far they've seemed very respectful. That's a switchback for Seracini, but then Towers has made his way down the inside. Seracini tries to switch back again. This is really good stuff here.
Yeah, this is a fantastic battle between the two. It might be for just a singular point, but they're fighting it like it's for a win. Stuart Towers tries to go down the inside there. Not the sort of place you ordinarily see a move, but these two have the respect at the moment to make it work, as there's a yellow in Sector 2. That is the Mercedes of Dan Riley, has gone round and hit the wall. It looks like he's got no damage, but he's lost a pretty abundance of time.
Yeah, it certainly does look like he's lost a lot of time, and it's just the cold tyres. He would have maybe tried to accelerate on the gravel, or not on the gravel, on the markings, as that's going to be Harry Jennings into the pit lane, and making a switch now. As I don't know why the yellow flags came out for him diving into the pit lane. Not that dramatic, but yeah, he dives in, and we'll be seeing a switch as well. We'll be seeing a switch for that 6th place. For 5th place, yes, we will, as Kyle lets Connor through, and that's going to be a switch with 4th place. No, it's not. Well, it is, because Connor went incredibly wide off of the corner, and I thought that the position was going to be swapped back, but no, Connor holds it, and they both try and bear down on the gap between themselves and the two up the top of the field, and they're going to hope to try and make this strategy work so they can pick up maybe something along the lines of a podium.
Yeah, well, the guys in 1st and 2nd, if you look at it, are already 20 seconds ahead. So they pretty much already have a full pit stop over the two McLarens. So now, all they need to do, really, even if it's not going to rain in this race, is just keep extending this stint. If they can go to about lap 14, they'll have the better tyres than Andrea Chenkovan, and they could potentially come out ahead of the two McLarens at this rate. Is actually just at the top. I was on board with Paul Garung. He had a huge snap of oversteer there.
Yeah, Paul Garung, he's not looked very set here today. He's seemingly struggled with the grip, and that doesn't seem to be something that is going to stop anytime soon, as he gets onto now what will be 12 laps on a set of the medium compounder tyres, which is very difficult to stretch And, well, that's why we saw a lot of the drivers and the majority of the drivers, apart from the top two and Brian, who now comes in, making the switch nice and early onto a set of the hards. But yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting scenario where the strategies are so unbelievably split between those on the mediums that you never really know what the right one is till they've all come in.
Yeah, no, tyres are a very interesting one here because they can vary from session to session. I mean, I can remember it from times I've raced at Singapore. Hards in the main race sometimes have felt absolutely appalling, and then in other races they felt like the tyre to be on. It's just such a temperamental circuit, purely through the nature of it. You know, I don't think there's another circuit like it where the temperature of the track plays such a key role. Of course, it plays a really big role at every circuit, but it feels like Singapore, especially through the nature of it, you know, being one of the tighter circuits on the calendar and also being a real test for the drivers.
Yeah, it's very much a test. It is the testiest circuit of the season, at least for the real life drivers, as that's going to be Paul Garung in, where it's so hard. It's so hot out there that, I mean, by the end of the race, you get a little bit delusional, I think, and you get a little bit, you go a little bit wacky. But I mean, these drivers at the moment, they seem to be contending pretty well with the heat, and well, it's just they have to run these races at night because that'll happen. But I mean, it's not necessarily the easiest climate to do these races in, and so that's why we've seen that those cold tyres actually made for better racing, where it's just almost more suited to the circuit.
Yeah, as you said, tyres very, very temperamental round here. One other thing to note is Andrea Chenkovan is bearing down on Oliver Matthews now. He's only 10.5 seconds back, and he has been closing that ever since he last came into the pits. So very, very interesting, because now Ollie Matthews, 13 laps on those mediums is a very, very good effort. And when is he going to pull the trigger and come in? Is he going to leave this stint out? He's going to stay out as long as he physically can. I don't know, lap 14, 15, 16. Can he keep himself out there as long as possible? So then when he does come onto the hards, he's got such a huge tyre offset over the entire grid, who are also going to be on those hards, that he can just sort of power through for the rest of the race purely through the better tyres.
Yeah, you'd expect him to be in and around, maybe ahead of the fight with Dan Riley now, maybe looking more towards Andrea Chenkovan, and hoping that he can extend the advantage that he'll have. If he does 3 or 4 more laps, then he'll get 6 or 7 laps of advantage over Chenkovan and Dan Riley, which would be huge on a set of those hards. But of course, at the moment, that's not necessarily going to be in his ballpark, as we head out towards what will be almost a halfway point. That's going to be somebody into the wall. Don't know who that was. Was that Connor who hit the wall? That was a huge noise into the wall. Doesn't appear to be anybody who's had that bad of a problem, but it sounded bad at the very least. But yeah, lap 14 of 31, and Ollie Matthews leads the way in the second sector, while his teammate in 8th place is going to come up to start his 14th lap now, and it's been absolute domination from Andrea Chenkovan. He's 12.9 seconds ahead of Paul Garung. Garung does have the better tyres, but it does feel as though the fight is always for P2. It's very, very interesting, because the fight does always appear to be for P2 at the moment, and Paul Garung appears to have found the pace to consistently stay in that second spot, and I mean, that's absolutely crucial in the grand scheme of things for Garung, in terms of maybe even next season, where he can just sort of be there every race, pounce on any mistakes. He needs to stay consistent. But yeah, we will see what he's going to be able to do across the course of this season and next season. Of course, this season starting to come to a close, a crescendo towards the end of it. We've got Singapore, which is today the last sprint of the season, as Ollie Matthews dives into the pit lane. And then we've got USA, Brazil, Qatar, and UAE to round out the season. Ollie Matthews into the pit lane. What is he going to be able to do? How close is he going to be to the back of Andrea Chenkovan? I think the answer is not going to be very close. Is he going to actually come out in and around where Carl Stewart Woodard is, and maybe the McLaren can be a thorn in the side of the V-Carb? Yes, he can. He's going to be alongside into the first corner. I don't think that Kyle wants to fight him. I think he wants to stay back as there was another penalty thrown in, as there's 3 for Kyle, 3 for Luca, and 6 for Brian and Harry.
Yeah, penalties starting to play their part in this race now. But I think lap 14, Ollie Matthews getting them to lap 14. I think that is the optimum pit lap, because now you don't have to worry about your tyres. You've got 17 laps to do on those tyres, so you can push them now, because they will last no matter what you do. As long as you don't, I don't know, do donuts in the middle of the track, your tyres will hold on and you will make it to the end pretty comfortably. So I expect Ollie Matthews to be pretty quick for the rest of this race, and 100% he can close that gap up to Paul Garung now, as he has a few lap newer tyres, so that will definitely play a part come the end of the race.
It certainly will. It will get very close towards the end of the race in terms of some of the fights that are on the circuit. I think Matthews and Garung is going to go right down to the wire. I know the gap now is 7 seconds, but Matthews has shown some very strong pace, and he's already closing with cold tyres, so I dread to think what he can do on warm ones, as Kyle and Connor, the only drivers yet to pit now, and I think they're just going to try and extend these hards as long as they can.
Yeah, I expect them to take these hards probably. I reckon they'll be in about laps, either next lap or lap 18, or somewhere around the next few laps, because, well, as we saw, they did 14 laps on the reverse strategy on the medium, so you can definitely do 14, 15, 16 laps on the mediums in the final stint, because, of course, as you go deeper into a race, the less fuel you have, the lower the tyre wear is, so I think they will probably be in the next couple of laps. Lap 18, I think, will be the latest they will choose to pit.
Yeah, it certainly will be. I think that, doing 13 laps on those mediums is going to be a stretch. I do think, knowing Kyle, he's going to try and go a little bit longer. He's going to try and be a devil's advocate, and he's going to try and stretch that stint as long as he can. And, he's done well to do 15 laps and still remain competitive. He's got Dan Riley on his back, though. This could be a fight that's, it's been interesting over the last few weeks. Is he going to let him go nice and easily, like he has the other drivers? Or is this going to be a little bit more of a fiery fight?
Well, it'll be very interesting to see after last week at Baku, that incident into the castle section between the two. I think Dan Riley is going to struggle to get past here because, well, DRS is not very powerful, and he has a fired up Kyle just ahead of him, who will most likely be looking to fight this.
Oh, he is definitely fighting this. He squeezes Dan wide, and that's contact between the two. And, I'm not going to make any passing comments on that one, except it continues the scrap between the McLaren and the Mercedes as they head down the main straight one more time. Dan to the inside. Can he seal it? Yes, he can. He's got much better tyres, and so he seals it nice and easily. Connor into the pit. 10-second time penalty. That's not going to be what the McLaren wants.
No, not at all good for the McLaren. And the race that McLaren were having that was going pretty well is starting to fall apart ever so slightly. Kyle, with that penalty, of course, has Ethan Shackleton behind him, who doesn't have a pen. Stuart Towers, who is going to come out ahead of them as well, doesn't have that penalty. So they're probably looking at a pretty low finish here, sort of 7th, 8th-ish at the max. That is even if they can gain on these newer tyres. Of course, coming out on the mediums, they're going to be much faster. But, once they get past Brian, once Connor gets past Brian, he's 14 seconds behind Stuart Towers. That's a pretty big ask to gain in 14 laps. He can do it. He's on the much better tyres. It's just a very, very big ask.
It's a very big ask, but it's one that he's going to desperately try and do, I think, as, he's got a 10-second time penalty, so it's not necessarily going to be the most ideal situation. He's certainly not going to want to come in again. He did suggest a 2-stop strategy, but especially with the 10-second. Feels like he's going to want to go all the way to the end.
Yeah, I think... sorry, you go.
No, continue. I was just dying.
I think anyone who's already stopped is going to try and go to the end. I think the only two people I'd be wary about whether they can make it to the end or not would be Andrea Chenkovan and Dan Riley. They're already on 8-lap old tyres, and they've still got to do another 13. So 21 laps on hards 22 even, is a little bit difficult, especially since, although they pitted early, and they had a few less laps of fuel than they would have in the first stint, it's still a very, very big ask, and they're probably going to have to do a lot of tyre management if they're going to make it to the end. I mean, luckily, the perk Andrea Chenkovan has is that he's 13.5 seconds ahead of Paul Garung. He can afford to drop 4 or 5 seconds through tyre management if he wishes to, because he's built up that big gap in the medium tyre stint and in the undercut that he can afford to take a few laps just to nurse his tyres a little bit. But Dan Riley can't really afford to, as much as Andrea Chenkovan can. He's got people close to him, of course. Kyle has yet to pit, but Ethan Shackleton, the man behind him, has pitted, and he won't go to the end. He's definitely not going to the end, Ethan Shackleton. Already on 13 lap old tyres, never going to the end. Kyle lets him through there, but that's just not happening. He's not going to the end. He's going to have to come in here again. And I think he'll probably be in the next couple of laps.
The impression that I'm getting is that those mediums are terrible, and the fact of the matter is that everyone just wants to be on the hards. So I think Shackleton's going to try at least to stick it out to the end. I think there's a possibility in his mind as Kyle is going to pull into the pits. I think he's gonna think about it. Whether he does it or not is another question, of course. We could have a late safety car. We've done well to avoid any real damage here today. I think we've only seen one driver replacing their front wing. But yeah, they've done very, very well to keep it out of the wall here today. And fingers crossed, I haven't just jinxed it, but we will see with these 19 laps gone and 12 laps to go. Kyle and Stewart come in. So Stewart's committed to the 2-stop.
Yeah, 2-stop strategy for Stewart. I mean, I said some people might try the 2-stop because of how tyre wear is. It depends on how you are on your tyres. If you're naturally quite bad on your tyres, then you're definitely going to struggle to do the 1-stop here. But if you're a little bit better, you can do the 1-stop. It depends really, but the thing is, it's an awkward 1-stop because even if you're decent on your tyres, it's still a bit of a struggle unless you're an esports driver, just because the tyre wear feels so hard because there's so many laps, and it's not exactly a short lap. A minute 30 is a pretty long lap for a Formula 1 race. I believe there's only like 3 tracks with a longer lap than Singapore, so it's not exactly a short lap, and with there being 31 of them, significantly more than other circuits, it is a very difficult 1-stop.
Certainly is, especially with the demands that these laps in particular put on you, where it's a very, very technical circuit. It's a very, very, very tricky one for the drivers to contend with, and we will be seeing them contend with it heading into lap number 20 of this race, and we're watching on with Ethan Shackleton. It's fair to say, I think, that his title charge here today has been shot to pieces, because now he's going to lose another 15 on top of his already big deficit. But it's going to be an interesting one to watch as Luca Seracini also dives into the pit lane. The V-carb is going to make the switch onto a set of the hards to do the last 11 laps. He's going to do hards for 11 laps. That's a interesting or potentially incorrect decision to make for him. But we will, of course, see heading towards the end of the race exactly what has happened or whether that will work out more specifically for him. And Ethan Shackleton at the moment we are watching on with, he's in 5th place, and I think he's in a pretty good spot. But if Kyle and Connor can really get some pace into those tyres, they can be dangerous in behind the Ferrari heading into the last few.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing to watch is, well, obviously, as I said, I don't think Shackleton is going to the end. He's going to have to do 25 laps, 26 even, because Andrea Chenkovan is already on lap 21. Ethan Shackleton's on lap 20 at the moment. So you've got to do 26 laps total on those hard tyres. That's just not happening. There is absolutely no chance that he's going to be able to do those 26 laps on it. There's no world where I see it happening. And if it does happen, I will be so impressed.
It'll be very, very impressive. I won't lie to you. It will be very impressive from Shackleton. I think now, more than ever, is his time to go into the pit lane. Although, having said that, I think if he leaves it a couple of laps, Brian will lose more time to Kyle and Connor. So I think if he pits lap 23, then he'll have a bit of clean air, and he'll definitely have a set of mediums that go to the end. So Ethan has a good opportunity there, and maybe he might actually come out to split the two Stuart Woodards.
Yeah, definitely. He's if he does choose to do the one stop, Ethan Shackleton, then it will be a pretty incredible achievement. But still, the two stop is going to be a very, very interesting one for him because, well, he's left it quite late. So does he carry on now till like lap 25 and go for the softs, or does he come in lap 23 like you said and go for mediums and just absolutely go for it to the end? As further behind, Stuart Towers going side by side with Luca Serafini, who has come in for the two stop, as you said. So Stuart Towers getting past on those better medium tyres, but watch out for the end of this stint because Stuart Towers will most likely drop off ever so slightly compared to Luca Serafini being on those mediums. Mediums are not particularly a very good race tyre around here, as Dan Riley is actually going to come in as well for a new set of mediums. So we're seeing a lot more drivers come in for the two-stop, and that does make me wonder what those in front of Dan Riley are going to do. Are they going to go for the two-stop and risk it? Or are they just going to stick to their guns, stick to the one-stop? For sure, Ollie Matthews is probably going for a one-stop, but what about Paul Garung and Andrea Chenkovan? I mean, I said Chenkovan is borderline whether he can make it to the end or not.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see whether they do, and I think a lot of the drivers, for them, it's worth it to do the two stoppers. Ethan Shackleton does actually come in a lap before I said he should. He's going to be out behind the two at Stuart Woodards, as Dan Riley is going to be out in between. He's got Connor ahead of him, Kyle behind, and I think that it's going to be a little bit more civil between the two, especially with Connor having a penalty. It doesn't make sense for him to fight this one at this point in time, especially with 5-lap-old mediums. It's going to feel like a real struggle if he does decide to fight it, not only during the fight, but towards the end of the race. Stuart Towers on the back of Shackleton as well, so he might be able to give him a fight. Luca Serafini in that one as well. And, well, it's all fights reignited, really. I mean, these three were fighting earlier on in the race, and it's good to see them once again out there on the circuit. Brian Moore not too far off, and that's a tap on the wall for Luca Serafini, and that is one mistake that's going to cost him his entire race, as now he's lost an end plate and he's lost so much steering.
Sorry, who lost their end plate? I was having
Serafini.
issues. Luca Serafini, oh, that is unfortunate. He was having a pretty solid race until then. I mean, that is, as you said, ruined his race completely. He's probably going to have to go into the pits and he'll come out behind Brian Moore, 100% of course, but he will come out in front of Harry Jennings, so he'll still be in the points, but it's definitely not what he wanted after such a strong sprint race for him.
Yeah, it certainly is. He was very happy. He was messaging me after the end of the sprint race to tell me how happy he was. And so it's unfortunate it's all come crashing down. We do also have the opportunity to hear from a few of the drivers before the weekend began. I believe Kyle completed his between the race and the sprints as well. We get all sorts sent to us from the drivers. And, well, it's the weekly driver updates. We had a very, very good turnout here today. 6 of the 12 made their contributions. I won't go through the contribution. I don't actually think there is a contribution, but I won't go through the contribution from Jack Weaver if there is one, because he's out of the race. Harry Jennings, he was pretty straightforward. He said he felt like a prat after breaking 3 front wings the last time out. He's had less time for practice this time, which is, it does sort of explain why he's down in 11th and miles away. He's scared of the walls and he's hoping to get a point. At the moment, it's not looking positive for the Williams, but for his teammate, he said he made a good move on Kyle before the castle section. Not much has changed. He's very nervous, hoping to keep his nose out of danger, and he wants to be 6th or 7th, but he currently finds himself in 8th place behind the two drivers in 6th and 7th, Kyle and Ethan. As well, I tried to make it obvious. I tried to make a pause. You've got apologies. You've got to be subtle with these kind of things. Kyle obviously sent his in. He actually sent his in just before the sprint race, and he said he was only slightly aggrieved by Dan. I'm not going to go into that move once again, but He struggled to keep the rear end in check in practice and can't dial it out in the race session itself, and he's hoping for lower top 10. Well, he's got middle top 10 so far. Don't know where he's going to get demoted with penalties, as that's going to be Ollie Matthews fighting with Paul Garung. And this is a fight that I've said was coming for a few laps, and it's certainly going to ignite. Speaking of Paul Garung, and we heard from him before the race began. We're also not going to speak to Bert Welly, or we're not going to hear from Bert Welly, because he unfortunately was not able to be here for the race. But that's the difference between time zone changes. That's the problem with time zone changes, and that will always be the problem with time zone changes. Is well, Paul, he was over the moon to get his first win. Of course, he did pick up his first win last time out. He's been testing traction control, and it appears to be helping him. He said he might have reached a limit, so he's trying to extend his limit, and he's hoping for a top 3 finish. Currently finds himself in second. That might not last much longer.
Yeah, Paul Garung under huge pressure now from Ollie Matthews. Ollie Matthews in this stint, even though his tyres are already 2 laps newer, it has definitely helped him an abundance towards the end of the stint, as I said it would. He just looks visibly quicker now and visibly more confident when you go on board with the two. He's being affected by dirty air right now, but even still, he looks pretty confident, does Ollie Matthews, in his car. As I say that, he smacks the wall. Connor picking up a 10-second in the pits, is coming in to serve a 10-second. So I believe he got a 10-second coming in to serve a 10-second. That is very unfortunate.
Certainly is. He was planning on serving that 10-second. He's not going to get the opportunity to do that because, well, he is, but he's going in anyway for another set of tyres and taking his penalties in the race up to 20 seconds in total. Stewart gets through on Kyle. It's been very, very good, the battling on track so far, and well, we hope it continues. Stewart is, hang on, excuse me, another driver. I just had to get that out of the way. Another driver who spoke to us pre-race and said that, of course, he was hoping for 6th or 7th and 6th place now. I mean, I wanted to touch back on it because it's been a good race for him so far, and it's looking a bit more positive than it was a couple of laps ago with 5 laps to go. We'll see what he's going to be able to do. And then finally, Lucas Erasini, we heard from him, and he said, the last race was terrible. Today, it felt as though it was okay, not as good as previous races, and it feels as though his pace around every track starts to improve, and he's going to hope to finish 5th to 7th. He's currently in 8th. And with penalties, where does he go down to? Or up to? He goes down because he's got 6 seconds more than Kyle. But I don't think he's actually going to lose a position. So 8th place might be his peak here today. Lap 26 of 31. We're coming towards the late stages of the race. And it feels like the biggest battle on circuit is for P2.
Yeah, the P2 battle really starting to spice up now. It's been a struggle for Ollie Matthews. I've been watching on board with him. To get past, as we said at the start of the stream, it's just such a difficult circuit to overtake at, even though he's got overspeed on corner exits. The dirty air is affecting his corner entry, and he just can't quite get close enough to mount an overtake. But he looks closer coming into turn 1. If he can keep this kind of gap between him and the Aston Martin, he'll be able to mount an attack into turn 4. Now the AI of Brian is getting involved a little bit there. Potentially could cause some issues, maybe, if it's if he gets in the way too much. Blue flags, of course, will be waving, but I mean, in F1 25 in the games, there is no such obligation technically to get out of the way of drivers. You can literally just unlap yourself. And then once the blue flags keep flying, if you don't go and make a big gap, you can just carry on and just stay in front of them. It's a very, very weird mechanic, of course. It is not the case in real life. In real life, you can you have to move out the way pretty quickly. I believe you get a sector. And then if you don't get out the way within that first sector, 3 blue flag boards, I believe it is, then you get a penalty.
Certainly is 3 blue flag boards. I know that for a fact. Because of the people that I know that steward, which is a fun fact. And obviously, it's interesting that we talk about steward because we've got 3 of them on the circuit right now in 3 very different positions. We've got Stuart Towers ahead of Kyle Stuart Woodard. Of course, Stuart is ahead only by DRS, but Stuart is in behind trying to hold position. Then Lucas Aristini splits Stuart, and Stuart with Connor 30 seconds back on the V-carb. And, well, he's going to try and fight his way back in, but with 3 laps to go, 30 seconds, absolutely no chance he's going to be able to do that. So it looks like 9th place for the Connor, for the 3rd Stuart on the circuit, as Paul Garang defended into the first corner. This is a fight that I think is going to come right down to the last lap.
Yeah, definitely. And I think something to pick up on. I think the current positions of the Stewarts kind of sort of reflects their pace and luck so far this season. I think Stuart Towers has been a little bit more consistently up there than Kyle. Kyle just behind, though, has had some brilliant races. And then Connor has not really had too much luck at a lot of places. Of course, Singapore being one of those as well, picking up 2 10-second penalties, unfortunately, as he has also just been lapped by Andrea Chenkovan in the lead. So definitely not a good race for him.
No, certainly not the greatest race in the world for him so far. And, well, he's going to be hoping to do better next time out. Of course, we still have a few rounds left in your APC season. We're going to start off after Singapore with the start of the very short American leg. Texas and then Sao Paulo, before back to Asia and Lusail and Abu Dhabi to round off our season. It's F1 style air miles here today and here in APC. But, I mean, it's a good mix of tracks. There's a good mix of tracks around the world, so it's good to see everywhere represented. I think we've got more Asian circuits than any other continent in our calendar, which is really interesting to see in 2025. Ollie Matthews gets a good exit out of the final corner, but he cannot quite get close enough, so he remains behind Paul Garang for the time being.
Yeah, as I said, he just can't get ahead. It's just such an awkward circuit to overtake on. He's finding that stalemate that so often happens at Singapore. He needs to realistically be within about 3/10, 2.5 tenths coming off of the corner to be anywhere near close enough. And I also think Paul Garang is probably, deploying his ERS in the perfect places, because it's an easy place to save ERS due to it being a tight circuit. So if you deploy your ERSs in all the right places, you can make it very, very difficult for your opponent.
You certainly can. You can make it incredibly difficult, and we'll see what these drivers are going to be able to do in terms of fighting towards the end of this Grand Prix. Lap 29 of 31. We've got a decent number of viewers in here, by the way. We've got 11 coming to watch. Usually we get around 4 or 5, maybe sometimes 6 or 7. But yeah, it's good to see lots of people coming in. Ollie has come in on 2 different accounts to say no rain, by the way, which we could have learnt by now, which we did learn, but I thought I'd point it out regardless. But yeah, lap 29 of 31, almost onto lap 30 of 31, and then we'll be ending off our race this evening. And well, it's very interesting to see the top 3. I don't think there's ever been that big of a gap from the podium drivers to off the podium.
No, that is a crazy gap. 40 seconds is an unbelievable gap, and we've got what, 1, 2, 3 drivers have been lapped in this race. So crazy pace from the top 3 that just no one behind has had an answer to from lap 1. It wasn't even as if it's been since the pit stops that this has happened. Literally from lap 1, they just pulled away. I believe there was a gap of 9 seconds by about lap 7. It was just absolutely unbelievable pace from the top 3, and no one can take it away from them, let's be honest, as now Andrea Chenkovan will come towards the midpoint of the lap, heading towards the final lap, and it has been a brilliant performance from him. As I said, he has managed to save those tyres because of that big gap, and he has lost 8 seconds due to saving. But can I just say, the other Ferrari is on track to make it at the moment, and that is incredible.
Yeah, he's doing very well, is Ethan Shackleton, to try and hold on to 5th place. The top 6 have been penaltyless all race long, as well, everyone else has not quite been, as that's going to be Luca through on Kyle.
Sorry.
And he makes his way up to 7th. What?
Sorry, Ethan Shackleton did pit. We just didn't notice it. I didn't notice it, at least.
I was going to say, because I thought, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'd forgotten he'd pitted.
Was one of those things where I feel like
yeah.
I need to be polite, but either way.
I'd forgotten.
Yeah. You write it down in your notes. Final lap then for his Ferrari teammate Andrea Chenkovan. He's had an absolutely dominant race, and he's cruising now to the line. And by cruising, I literally mean cruising. I think this Sauber is going to be quick enough that he's going to be able to make his way through, as it is side by side for P2. Ollie Matthews on the outside of Paul Garung, but Ollie has managed to get the traction to take that position. What can Paul Garung do on the exit? Can he pull alongside with the DRS for Ollie? He can almost do so. This fight is going to continue on throughout the next two DRS zones, and I think even into the final braking zone.
Yeah, he just got the move dead right. He set it up into turn 1, was side by side for turn 2, and then into turn 3, went round the outside, got the better traction on the corner, and is now starting to pull away from Paul Garung. He's on the better tyres, he's got the newer ones, and he's gaining on Andrea Chenkovan very quickly. I think if he'd have got past Paul Garung a couple of laps earlier, Ollie Matthews could have pushed for this race win 100%, because he's gained a second and a half on this lap alone, so he 100% could have pushed for the win. But what a race for Andrea Chenkovan. He's going to take a big chunk of points in the championship, and could that be battle over?
I think it certainly could be. Andrea Chenkovan is going to stamp his authority once again over that championship lead. It looked a bit shaky 2 rounds ago, but it's right back on top. Ollie Matthews on debut with a very strong P2. He beats out Paul Garung, and they both got very close to the back of Chenkovan at the end of the race. Another 3-second time penalty to Brian Moore, as Harry Jennings was the only driver lapped in the race to end up not being on the lead lap, and so he took the flag, the 4th driver. Then we'll see Daniel Riley, 36.2 seconds back off of the back of Paul Garung, and he's going to try, and he's going to try and see what he can do in terms of holding that gap ahead of Shackleton, not making a mistake out of the final corner. And I think he's run out of fuel potentially on the line there, but Dan Riley holds on to P4, just half a second in the end ahead of Shackleton. Stuart Towers is the first driver without a penalty, and Luca Saraceni desperate to get past, and I think he's going to try and get past on track despite all those penalties. He's going to end up 7th, Towers 6th, and Towers holds on to it. Where is Luca Saraceni going to drop to? It's going to be Kyle in 7th. Connor is a while back, so I think it's going to be Luca holding on to 8th, and then it's Connor and Brian to round out our points. Who's going to be ahead on the penalties? It is going to be Connor still, so it is Connor and then Brian to round out our points.
Yeah, a very close race in the end. It looked like at the midpoint it was going to be pretty much fully decided, but Andrea Chenkovan's tyres just died off so quickly. And he said in chat that he was very dangerously close to a puncture, so a little bit of luck maybe in not getting a puncture. I mean, I have seen Andrea Chenkovan in the past get a puncture on the last lap, which in another league, which was very unfortunate for him, but not this time, and he takes the win at Singapore.
He certainly does, and he takes it in a very strong fashion as well. This is going to be the final finishing order for the race. That's the award winners, but that's Chenkovan to Matthews to Garung, Riley, Shackleton, Towers, Stuart Woodard, then it's Saraceni, then other Stuart Woodard, then Moore, Jennings, and then Jack Weaver, the only DNF, and he's not very happy with that one, but it is what it is. We're going to throw it back. Go to the, not quite literally throw it back. We're going to go to the interviews. We get a rare interview with Harry Jennings, and that's going to be fun to hear. I mean, we never really get to hear from you, but just break down that Singapore Grand Prix.
A bit uneventful, really. I kind of just, once I'd lost the DRS train, I was gone. And then I was in Jedi's penalty range at the end, and he's just floored it and pulled like 10 seconds and unlapped himself. I didn't know that's happened. I was 7/10 away from it, and then he's just floored it and unlapped himself on the 3 leaders, which I was slightly annoyed about because I was wanting a point.
Yeah, I can imagine it's very difficult at that point to be in the fight for a point and then not end up picking one up. I mean, it's been a very interesting fight, you versus Brian, really, for the points. Are you expecting any points later on this season? Are you feeling as though there's any progression there, any circuits that you're looking forward to? Of course, Texas, then Sao Paulo, then Lusail, then Abu Dhabi. Is it sort of a target to get as many of those as you can, and is it a realistic one? Is realistically my question.
Texas is probably the most realistic. Is my only podium in ABC was in Texas, so that's I want points there. But if it happens, that's another question.
Fair enough. Well, we will hope the best for you. Owen, have you got anything for Harry before we let him go?
No, I do not.
Wonderful. Well, we will let you go then, Harry. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Yes.
Fighting the man for final place and pulling 10 seconds apparently on the last lap, pulling out some sort of Max Verstappen performance to keep on the same lead lap and to stay within the points. Brian, how would you summarise that one?
Horrific. If I had to just use one word, horrific. It was not a good race weekend.
Yeah, didn't look wonderful, but I mean, you ended up with a point, so it can't have been that terrible. And I mean, it was the pace wasn't necessarily there. Was it just a struggle to adapt to the Singapore circuit?
No, the pace was there. It's just the standards of some of the other drivers, I feel, was not there today like has been in recent weeks. I mean, I guess near the end of the season, but there was a few questionable things I seen out there today.
Would you care to elaborate, or am I prying too much? And am I
Um,
sort of trying to cause something?
I'll go into. I'm not trying to cause sort of shit between drivers now, but sprint. Sorry for swearing, but the sprint race. Turn 4, lap 1. I'm on the inside of Kyle, and I get Dan Riley's on the outside, but he comes straight across me and spins me, and it's unnecessary. I'm there. He can see I'm there. It's just unnecessary. Main race, final corner. Connor's on the inside of me. I'm giving Connor room. He takes it like I'm not there, and I get forced to have to slam the brakes on the outside and leave the track because I'm not getting left the room.
Yeah, certainly a difficult one. But I mean, you sometimes get that at Singapore. It's a very difficult circuit to race around. Owen touched on it earlier on the broadcast, just how hard it is to, keep fighting around this circuit, which is so incredibly tight and so incredibly taxing. Owen, have you got anything for Brian before we let him go?
Nope, not this time.
Fair enough. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and we will see you next week, where hopefully you're going to be on that point charge once again.
Thanks.
That's going to be Brian dealt with, and I'm sure he's going to be dealt with for the absolutely horrendous language that he used. I cannot quite believe that he would use that word. So I apologise for that one. But I mean, now we're going to get the chance to speak to. Should we speak to Kyle or should we speak to Dan? I reckon we keep going up. We speak to Kyle first. We split up the two who have had interesting fights, and maybe they're having another one here, and maybe we'll get a little soundbite or something. I hope we don't, as I drop them in. And we will get the chance to speak to one of the drivers at least on the alternative strategy, and it was a very interesting. Only 2 drivers who went for those hards first and then the mediums second. But what was your summation of that race as a whole, and more particularly in terms of strategy?
Firstly, I was very surprised to be brought in so early. I like this. I like this. Yeah, I felt quite good about the one stop anyway. I mean, I don't want to say I'm anywhere near as good as any of these the YouTubers, but I did watch the greatest series on the weekend, and I did see how well the hards did on Ben Daly's race. So that's why I hit the hards in the sprint, which gave me good grip to the end, and I've decided to start on him here as well, going mediums later. I felt quite confident that the one stop was on, and that kind of proved itself. I don't get me wrong, I did quite struggle towards the end of the stint a little bit, but yeah, I feel like that was the best call because obviously, I was racing Luca and Stuart. Stuart obviously ended up just ahead of me, and Luca ended up just behind me. So possibility that if I did the 2-stop, I might have got ahead of Stuart, but I don't think so because he pitted ahead. He pitted well ahead of bit ahead of me, so he would have probably undercut me anyway. So I think similar to last week, I don't think I massively lost out, and I don't think I probably won ahead of Luca. I think Luca might have been hard to battle on the 2-stop. Although I'm not sure what happened to him earlier on when he was behind me and span out. I'm not sure if I've done anything there, so I have to wait and see. But I don't believe I did. But yeah, no, pretty good. Yeah, not a lot to say really. Not a lot to say. I've struggled at Singapore the last couple of seasons. I don't know why. I never used to with rear end traction, but yeah, pretty good race. I had some good races with some people. I can't remember who now, but I just remember there was a bit of the race where I was having a great time. So yeah, quite happy with seventh position. It obviously extends my lead on my teammate, but closes it. I can't talk. I don't know why I can't talk today. Apologies. Stuart extends his lead on me slightly as well, which obviously I'm fighting championship, which is a bit unfortunate. But yeah, and the least said about that sprint, the better. I don't even I don't know what happened there. If I'm honest. Oh, I did forget turn one. I think I left my overtake on in turn one, which is why I went a bit deep. But luckily, no, I don't believe I damaged anyone. So I kind of got away with that one, I think. Although we'll see if any Stuart's reports come in from that.
Certainly we will, and I mean it's you and me both struggling to speak today, as you don't know if you'll be able to tell from my voice, but I've been coughing throughout the broadcast. Not on the broadcast, thankfully. I have a mute button,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean it's an interesting race. Certainly, I mean you were involved in the thick of a lot of the fights, I think, and I think that summarises it pretty well. I think that runs through all of the questions I had. Owen, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, just one on Texas next week. Of course, another weird one for tyres. How are you feeling for next week at Kota? Because it's one I believe you said you've had a pretty good result at Kota before.
Yeah, I don't get ahead of myself. Obviously, like I haven't won in a long time, but yeah, I think I won. I did win in Kota. I think that's my only win. Only normal race win. I've also had a sprint win. Also, that's my only normal race win. I can't see. I want to say season 5, maybe season 4. It was me versus Shaq. And I had the pace on him. Changeable conditions as well, which really spiced that one up. But yeah, I've always done well, even if it's not the win since the win. I've still done well. So hopefully, I think I've had a podium on a later season as well. So just got to keep that up. I've got to and got to be careful this time. I gifted Shaq that position last time we were there. I can't remember. I think it was last season when I left him far too much space on the last lap and he dived me. Yeah, so I've got to make sure I'm a bit more careful this time. Learn from those mistakes because I can't remember what position that was. There might have even been a podium position. I can't remember, but yeah, I need to learn from that to make sure I keep that position next time. Be a bit more defensive on the final laps. But yeah, one of my best. I like to say. Hopefully I haven't jinxed it, and we'll see DNF on it on the screen. But no, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that one. That's gonna be a fun one.
Second driver who's talked up their Kota performances, so we'll see how you and Harry Jennings get on. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us today, and we will see you next time out in Kota.
Thanks very much, guys. See you then.
No worries. And now we head on further up the grid. I'm not going to tell Carl, by the way, that it's about. I'm not going to tell him that it's in order of the grid. We're going to move on to Dan Riley. We've been busy today. We're going to wait a while to get to the podium contenders, but we get the chance now to speak to Dan Riley, who, I mean, he was very far off the podium in terms of on track, but off track, it was a decent result, wasn't it?
Yeah. First off, we'll start with a bit of a personal life. It's a bit weird, but yeah, I did have a recent crash in my car recently, so I have been carrying a lot of neck pain, so that really didn't help in this race. But it is what it is at the end of the day. But now we get into the race, or actually, we'll start with the sprint. Unfortunately, the sprint didn't really go my way, unfortunately. Of course, I made contact with Kyle. Yeah, I have reported it to the stewards because I did feel like he was the one to blame. And yeah, it was. I felt like if we didn't make contact, or if I got past him there, I would have been maybe P1 or P2. Definitely either one of those two. That's kind of the reason why I did report it, because of a missed opportunity I had. But yeah, the sprint just didn't go my way. I was literally carrying so much wing damage, so much. So yeah, I think I got P5 or 6. I can't remember what I did in the sprint race, but it was one of those ones to forget, really. But quali was okay. I got past Shackleton, which was okay in quali. I mean, the rain really came very surprisingly. Really, I didn't think any rain would came, but then we get into the race. I had a very good launch, and I genuinely thought at the start I would be P3, or P3 would be on the cards if I just kept I think it's named Ollie. Yeah, Ollie. If I just kept him behind, I generally thought I would have got P3, but I had no idea. He was absolutely ridiculous in his pace. So fast. Yeah, I had no idea that his pace was so strong. Pretty good that I kept him behind for so long, but yeah, I wasn't really going to get past him. Then I pitted, and then I made a bit of I'm not sure if you see that, but I actually spun. I think it was Mr. Tado, his name. I'm not sure what his name is, but I made contact with him. I honestly have no idea who's at fault. In my opinion, it was like a racing incident. I have to look it back, but yeah, if that cost me much more, then that would have been very bad for my race. But I think I recovered quite well after that spun. And then I don't know what it is with the McLaren drivers. I don't know why. I mean, they're perfectly within their rights to fight me, but I don't understand what is the point. I first was battling with I think it was Kyle first or Connor. I don't know. I think it was Kyle. I was battling first, but yeah, he just makes it so difficult. And I think he did like I don't want to say he's a dirty driver, but I think he is a bit on the limit when I was trying to overtake him. But that wasn't as near as Connor, like completely moving under braking when I'm trying to pass in a much faster car and much faster tires. Like I just don't understand what they're doing. But I mean, they're perfectly within their rights to fight me. But I don't know. It just kind of infuriated me at the time. But yeah. Then I had a bit of a moment with Ethan. I thought he was going to catch up to me, but I think it was 8 seconds in the end. So yeah, P4, which I would say is a pretty good result. But yeah, I don't know. Disappointed with the sprint, but quite impressed with the race result.
That's fair enough, and of course we won't go any further into your incidents with the McLarens because that will be decided in the stewards' room, and of course not the incident with Harry either. Harry being Mr. Tado. I think you've summarised that race pretty well. You tend to. Owen, have you got anything for Dan before we let him go?
Yeah, I suppose we should ask about next week, shouldn't we? Moving on to Kota, how are you feeling for next week at Texas?
Of course. Texas was, if you look back at last season, I had such a good race in Texas. I think I got P2 in sprint and P3 in the race, and really, I remember that race actually quite well because I think I should have got pole. Very dodgy track limits. I remember from last year, but I remember it was a very, very good race last year. Hopefully, we can turn it around next year and have an even better one. But we'll have to wait and see. I do have one question actually for you guys. Did I think it was Mr. Tado, his name. Did he say anything about my contact with him? Because I just want to know if it was my fault, really.
I don't believe he did, and I don't think it would have made any difference to his race anyway, because he did end up about 30 seconds off. So I don't know if that's going to be something that's spoken about in the stewards. But yeah, either way, we will see how that one ends up. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Perfect. That's all right. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
He will be grinning from ear to ear about that, knowing that he's not going to get reported by Harry Jennings, and or maybe he needs to sort out his real life driving quicker than he needs to sort out his offline driving. That's a joke.
Ooh.
I feel really bad about that one. I hope he doesn't watch it back. Sorry, Dan, if you do. But yeah, that was horrible. Anyway, Ollie Matthews is gonna be in the box.
Whoa.
And hello, you've been dragged in now.
I can see.
Sorry, you're new here, aren't you? So
I
I
am
do just
indeed.
I drag people in without warning. You're gonna get very used to
That's
that.
fine. I just had Discord open and was fully prepared for it to happen as people were switching in and out.
Good. That's the way to be. And well, I mean, you seem to adapt to the APC way and also adapt to the APC way on track very, very quick. You appear to be. You
Yeah.
want to just summarize that race for me?
I just sent it. I got held up quite a bit on both of my stints, but I felt like I had decent pace and regrettably could have won it. But you never know. I had good battles with both Cloven and Dan, so I don't regret coming P2 for a debut.
Yeah, it's
Just-
not too
yeah.
bad.
Not bad at all. Heart rate was through the roof at the end, though, knowing that Senki might have been near puncture.
Yeah, it certainly looked like you had one. I reckon you had one more lap and you could have got him, but it was very
Absolutely.
very
My tyres had just
close.
hit 60%, so I had like a 20% advantage on him.
Yeah.
Because I just dragged those mediums on for, I say as long as I could. I reckon I could have done 3 more laps on the mediums, but then had less time to catch.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it is indeed.
But yeah, I mean, interesting race. You got any more races you're available for? I'm sure that we take you.
I mean, I'm gonna have to see. I'm taking it kind of week by week, but I had yeah, it just depends on what I'm up to. I will be sure to definitely race again. Tuesdays is quite an awkward day for me, so as much as I'd love to do it full time, I don't think I can, but I will definitely plan on racing at least 1 or 2 more towards the end of the season. 4 races to go. Maybe I can challenge for the championship. You never know. I don't actually know. I'm probably way too far off.
In terms of this
Yeah.
season, yes.
Yeah,
But in terms of future seasons, I don't see why you don't have the pace to challenge
that's
Rush
true.
very
Yeah,
tough.
I'll have to negotiate my way to and other commitments to prioritize this. Maybe we'll see.
Sounds like a plan to me. Well, thank you
Yeah.
very much for joining us today.
You're
And
welcome.
well,
It
congrats on
was fun.
congrats on your podium.
Thank you. Singapore with no safety cars. Crazy.
Definitely. But yeah, thank you very much. And we will move on now after that very new driver. Might not necessarily be used to being interviewed, but I mean, it's a shock, I think, when you first come here, how just quality the commentators and therefore the interviews are, and how just quality everything is just as a whole, because we're so amazing. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about, because we've got now Ethan Shackleton into the box, and how do we feel about that one? I mean, it was a very, very good race for your teammate, not necessarily so good for yourself, but how would you summarize that one?
Yeah, that was a disappointing one, unfortunately. I got caught up in an incident on lap 1, but I could argue that my poor qualifying is what put me in the midfield as well. So not that I don't think the incident was my fault at all, but if I had a better qualifying, I would be in front of some of those guys, and then it wouldn't have happened anyway. I think ultimately my pace was just poor. It just sucks. So yeah, looking forward to the next one. Moving on.
Yeah, it was disappointing, of course, to see yourself further back towards the mid pack. Really, were you expecting your pace to be better around Singapore?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to be fighting for the win or anything, but I was expecting more than this.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, looking on to the next few weeks, how are the tracks looking for you?
Actually, not great. That's not what you want to hear, is it? Yeah, I really don't like Kota that's coming up next. I always find that it feels weird, like as if it's a low grip like surface a bit. I remember that the commentators in F1 always used to go on about that with Sochi when it was here, that it's always like a low grip tarmac or whatever. And I always feel like Kota feels that way, like I don't have any grip, but it should provide grip. I mean, in real life, I'm sure it does.
Yeah, it's well, it'll be very, very interesting to see. Owen, have you got anything?
No, not on this one.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and that'll round us off for this evening.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
Well, that was a long waiting room, and it's never a bad thing because the more drivers we get in the waiting room, the more drivers are in APC, the more action we get to see on the circuit. It's all just kind of unravels on itself. But that was a pretty decent race, pretty decent battling all the way along. Owen, have you got any final words?
Yeah, well, it was an interesting race for multiple reasons. We saw the debut of Ollie Matthews, as I said at the start, a driver I was very, very familiar with, but not one that was familiar to this league. And he proved what I said, that he would bring some pace and experience to the league, bringing what very nearly could have been a debut victory had there have been a couple more laps in the race. We saw good pace once again from Paul Garung and, of course, Andrea Chenkovan reigning supreme as always, extending his championship lead and potentially taking it out of reach from Ethan Shackleton, who I believe said last week still has to miss one more race.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Ethan Shackleton. He is going to have to miss one more race. Unfortunate for us as well. And, we will be seeing what he's going to be able to do at GOTA in 7 days' time. Until then, it is goodbye.
The action's underway.
Stamps his authority once again.
My word, this could go wrong. On the brakes, goodness me, what a launch.
Look at that.
It just all comes down to this.